Okay, guys, give me 1 second to just get my life together.
I probably need more than a second for that. But I always watch other people get up here and do this, and I feel bad for them. And now I'm up here and I'm like, but everybody feels bad for me. It's the awkwardness of it. When your Bible's too heavy to put on the stand.
Like, what do I do with it? We're gonna hold it. Hi, guys. For those of you who I have not met, had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Morgan. As Ali said, I've been on the core team here at St. Michael's for however many months it's been since July. I'm really blessed and honored to be here. I'm very blessed and honored that Ali asked me to speak and that I got to follow Elise because, girl, that was so powerful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your witness. That was so beautiful. Yeah, like Ali said, I'm just gonna talk about what we talk about as people, or what it means to talk in general. So I actually went to Google for that answer because why not? Nowadays, if we need to know something, why not just get on Google? So I actually, the name of this talk is How to Have a Christ-like Conversation. And so I just Googled, what is a conversation? And I actually really enjoyed what Google had to say. So a conversation is a talk, especially an informal one, in which news and ideas are exchanged. And I really, really like how it said exchanged. I thought that was very powerful because it shows that a conversation isn't just about speaking or talking at someone, but it's also that listening to what that person has to say. I think we've all been on that side of the conversation where the person you're supposed to be talking with is really just talking at you, and it's exhausting. Like they're just word vomiting on you and you really can't get a word in. I love one of my friends who immediately comes to mind. I just talked with her the other day, but like, yeah, she's just one of those people who it's like you tell her you have to go, or that you're like in your friend's driveway, like ready to go meet their baby, and like they keep talking, and you're like, no, I actually have to go. So like a conversation isn't one-sided. A conversation is that sharing, but also that receiving, that listening to the other person. And if you saw, I don't know if it was up there, but whenever I looked up the definition, a similar term for conversation, according to Google, was heart to heart. And I really liked that because I think it literally got to the heart of what a conversation is. It's this giving and sharing of our hearts, of this thing that really matters to us. Even if it's just something as simple as you asking, what's your favorite candy? Like, you're asking to know something about another person. And when we know someone, we can love them well, or we can love them better than if we don't know them. But it's easy sometimes to focus on ourselves, like whether we're having a conversation, or especially if maybe we're feeling rushed one day, it's easy to focus on ourselves, our schedule, and miss the love that the Lord wants us to experience in this person in front of us, or wants to give love through us too, if that makes sense. So I thought of this the other day because I was literally on my way to Mass. I was trying to leave my house. I was trying to go to Mass and adoration. So it's like, what better thing to get to, right? So in my mind, I'm like, nothing can stop me. Like, I need to get to Jesus. And one of my roommates was sitting there, and I'm not especially close to this roommate, but it became very apparent to me in this moment that I could walk past her or that I could stop. Even though I was going to be late to adoration and my time with Jesus, like I almost missed how Jesus wanted me to encounter him in my roommate. But praise be to God, he gave me the grace to stop in that moment. And I was just like, hey girl, how's it going? And she started to talk to me because she was also in the middle of something. So I knew that it was like there was going to be a chance that she was also going to blow me off, but she didn't. She like put her computer down, like looked me in the eyes. And as I was putting my coat on, like I looked at her and we were talking. And it was very simple. It was very short. It was kind of just, hey, how was tutoring this morning? And she was like, good, how are you? But I recently started dating someone, and she got to meet him like last week, and I didn't really think about that, didn't ask her about it later, but because I stopped and had this conversation with her, it was very loving. She actually shared with me just totally out of the blue. She was like, hey, by the way, I really like that guy. He seems like a really nice guy. And even though I'm not super close with this girl, like that meant so much that she shared that with me. And I would have missed out on that love that God gave me through her in that moment had I just whizzed past her on my way to Mass. In Philippians, if you have a Bible, feel free to get it out. Go to Philippians chapter 2. I really love this passage. In my Bible, at least, it literally says, imitating Christ's humility. So if you go to Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 say this: do nothing from selfishness or conceit, but in humility count others better than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4. And I love that so much because it shows how we're called to always imitate Christ's humility, but even in simple everyday conversations, we are called to do this. And how we can do that is be very intentional when we are talking with someone or about to talk to someone, that we take the focus off of ourselves and put it on them. That it's not so much about, here's what I have to share, as what can I receive from this person? How can I love this person by receiving what they have to share with me? So this is especially important. I want to make this point. It's very important to do this when someone is sharing something painful with you, or something that he or she is being vulnerable about. Like maybe it's something he or she is struggling with. It is very important in that moment to just receive what the person has to say. And sometimes, let's be honest, maybe someone's sharing something with us and we know why the bad thing happened. And maybe it was even their fault, or maybe we just want to fix it, right? Like sometimes that's our human nature. We just want to make it better. And rather than listen, we're just going to immediately jump the gun and be like, here's how I want to help. And it sounds like a good idea, but it's actually not helpful, and it can be hurtful, and it can end up hurting the person. And this is a very, very silly example, but Allie's going to pull up this video, and it's called, It's Not About the Nail.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
You ever feel like that?
You have a nail on your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. I'm not sleeping very well at all. All my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Sounds really hard.
Yes.
Ow! Come on. If you would just.
Don't.
I love, if you caught at the end, the song that starts playing, the guy says, try to see things my way. And that's a really good point, because even though that was a very dumb video, I love it. Actually, one of the monks from Benedictine that I went, where I went to college, like, told us about that video, so I thought that was so funny. He's like, isn't this true? I was like, how would you know? But like, it's so funny because, yeah, it's so true. Like, sometimes it is very easy to look past the person and just see the splinter, to put it more biblically. Like to see the wooden splinter in their eye when Jesus says, look at the wooden beam in yours. Like in the moments where people are sharing with us, you could see that guy's face in the video and how he was clearly like frustrated, how he was not like really willing to listen, but just immediately like wanted to try to fix the problem. But it's so important to know people's problems aren't ours to fix, they're God's. And people aren't ours to fix, they're God's. So on that note, I want to say this. listening can bring healing. And sometimes that is more powerful than anything else you can do. Allie posed the question to us, I suppose, whenever we got started tonight. Share with somebody, when is a time in your life that you felt like really listened to and like a conversation that really changed your life? And maybe even if she didn't say the part about listening, I bet that conversation made you feel listened to or loved in some way, and that's why it changed your life, because that person was willing to receive you, possibly baggage and all. So when someone is sharing something difficult with you, it is very important to aim to listen to them with mercy and not judgment. Think about how Jesus listened to people. So for example, if you think about that Bible story where Lazarus had died and his sisters Martha and Mary run to Jesus, and they say like, Lord, where were you? Like if you were here, our brother wouldn't have died. Like, where were you? And how many times in my life I can relate to that, where I've like run to God and been like, how could you let this happen? Or like, why? Why would you let this happen? And instead of like looking at Martha and Mary and saying something to them like, do you not believe that I'm God? Like, do you not believe that I'm all that you need? Or even, you know how sometimes when people come to you and you're like, don't cry, it's okay, like, because here's why. He also didn't look at them and say, like, hey, don't cry, it's fine. Like, I'm about to raise your brother from the dead and it's gonna be awesome. He didn't say either of those things. What he did was say nothing, and he wept. Jesus wept with Martha and Mary before he did anything else. And there's another passage in scripture where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. So whether the person that you encounter is rejoicing or whether they are weeping, I encourage you to enter into that before you start sharing your heart. Because it is so powerful, the healing that can occur when we love others in conversations as Christ would, like that. Often, your part in the remedy is to just let it be and let the Holy Spirit grant healing in God's own time. Say a prayer for the person in the moment, but then like let God do God. Let God be God. Let him take it from there. And yes, sometimes it can be scary when someone shares something really big. Like if someone shares, of course, like if they are hurting themselves or if they want to hurt other people, like in those moments when it becomes very serious, encourage them to go to a priest, to go to a spiritual director, to go to a mentor, to seek that help. And if they're not willing to do that, then you might be called to be that person. Like go to those people yourselves. Like God does not want us to be alone, but also let God lead that process, because God knows what is best for you and for that person. And I know that was on a more heavy note, but because I want to help you like know how to have a better conversation, a Christ-like conversation in general, I'm gonna have some slides pulled up on here because I am a very practical how-to kind of person, and I'm that weird person who actually likes taking notes. So I'm gonna step out of the way. If you also like taking notes, feel free to grab a pen, grab your journal. If you want to pull out your iPhone and just take pictures of the screen, totally cool too. But I want to give you a few tips on how to listen and therefore receive another person really well. So the first thing to do is step out of your own world. These actually do not come from me. These are not my own ideas. Also, this is a shout out to Ascension Presents. There was a video that Father Mark Mary and Mother Claire of the Franciscan Sisters and Friars of the Renewal made. And so this actually comes from Mother Claire's own experience with spiritual direction and training in spiritual direction. So this is very solid foundational advice. So number one, step out of your own world. Mother Claire says, if someone shares an experience with you, it is actually a very natural human instinct to relate that to your own experience. So let's say that Rachel and I are having a conversation, and I might ask something as simple as, like, what's your favorite candy? And Rachel might say M&Ms. In that moment, I can either choose to ask her more about that, ask her to expand, like, why is that your favorite candy? Do you like chocolate candy as opposed to like sweet and sour candy more? Or my initial instinct is gonna be to relate that experience to my own experience and wanna talk about that. So my instinct is actually gonna be, Rachel, what's your favorite candy? She says M&Ms, and I'm like, no way, I love M&Ms. And I'm gonna wanna take over the conversation at that point. That is a natural human tendency. But in Mother Claire's own words, good listening sets that aside so that you can actually hear what the other person is sharing with you. Number one. And number two, listen to the person's heart. What does that mean? So this is more like, what are they sharing beyond words? So if you think back to that video, like think of what that woman's face looked like. She was very frustrated. She was very frazzled. Like she was very clearly stressed out and anxious. And so what her heart was saying in that moment was just that. Like, what were the emotions? What were the feelings? Like, it was that she wasn't okay, that she wasn't doing well. And so if that man in the video had chosen to like not listen to her heart, he would have missed out on all of those things and just heard the words. But as Mother Claire says, listening to the person's heart actually shows the bigger picture of the person and allows you to receive them more fully. I'm gonna step up here for one more second so I can see something. But yeah, so those are the two big things on listening. But I have another slide that I wanna show you guys, because if you're having a conversation, I wanna give you some practical like questions as well. Because earlier I mentioned how questions, like if I started asking Rachel, well, why do you like M&Ms? Or, tell me more about that. Have you always liked M&Ms? What's your favorite kind of M&M? Questions are a really great way to make a conversation go longer, but they also make it more meaningful and more natural. So these are some examples. Some are very simple, like the M&M one, but then some are very serious. And I wanted to talk about that because I have people I know and love in this room who are experiencing these things right now. And sometimes it's a human tendency to like not want to weep with those who weep because you're like, I don't know how to do that. And you like get really awkward. So for example, like if someone, like your friend, like they lose a loved one and you're like, what do I say? It's okay to ask questions about it, because sometimes maybe the devil's gonna whisper in your ear and be like, no, don't talk about it because she's gonna cry more, she's gonna be sad. If your friend brings this up to you, it means she wants to talk about it. It means she wants to share. It means she wants to be received. So like just one simple question. If someone's grandma is in the hospital, or if someone's grandma has passed away, like tell them you're sorry to hear that. Like enter into that with them. Don't be afraid. Ask, were the two of you very close? Like, did your grandma live close to you? Was it your mom's mom? Was it your dad's mom? Like, show that you care and actually listen. Don't just rattle off questions, but really enter in and let the Lord lead those questions. Or maybe simply someone's upset. This happens to all of us. Like, we're at the grocery store and the clerk, like, we have this like encounter where we're very frustrated and we don't like really understand what the other person is trying to say. Or maybe we're at school or at work and you had a project and you had like a partner for that project and that person just like was a drag, and you just like go off on your like spouse about it or go off on your best friend about it. The temptation in that moment when you're the spouse or when you're the best friend is to be like, calm down, right? Like you're overreacting. Maybe a better way to receive the person in that moment is just to be like, dude, I'm so sorry that this person like upset you so badly. Like what were you trying to get him to understand? Like what were you trying to get across to her? And again, just enter into that and don't be afraid to just be there. Because sometimes it really is about just being there and just listening. And you saw at the end of the video how much it meant to that woman when that guy just listened to her. I'm gonna share a quick story about that from my own life, and then I don't wanna just talk at you. I want you to be able to talk with one another. I wanna talk with you. But yeah, just an example of that in my own life when I felt so listened to, so loved, was when my friend Ellen, several months ago, shortly after I moved to Kansas City, there was this situation that I was so upset about. And I didn't realize how bad I needed to cry. I just thought I needed to like get angry and vent. And so that's what I was doing. she was over at my house, and I was just like going on and on and on, and she was just sitting there, and she was just listening. She wasn't even asking any questions. She was just letting me go off. And it got to the point where I like took a breath, and she just like held her arms out. And she was like sitting on the couch, and I was sitting in a chair. She just like held out her arms and kind of went like this. And I was like, okay. And I just like broke down sobbing, and I just like ran over to her, and she just held me as I proceeded to bawl my eyes out for like 15 minutes and just cry. And I didn't realize I needed that, but just because she was so willing to be in that moment with me, receive what I had or what I needed really in that moment, to share, and then let the Lord lead her. Because some of you might be thinking, the last thing I would want in that situation is a hug. That's okay. Maybe God would show the person that's receiving you what you most needed. It just so happened for me in that moment, it was a hug. So, I hope those are some helpful, practical tips that I could share with you. I really appreciate you guys listening to me, you receiving what I have to share. But now, I think Nick's gonna come up here and transition us into how we're gonna do that with each other. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Morgan.